Alright everyone, a number of people have actually sent me news about this, which is that the nation of Sweden is considering banning several Norse runes because they're being used by, like, I don't know, the soldiers of Odin or something like that. They've been officially condemned by basically every pagan assembly in Europe, and no wonder. And as a pagan, of course, and as, you know, a libertarian, I feel doubly concerned when things like this happen. Only in Sweden would it make sense for several characters from an ancient alphabet to be banned because they were being used by people in modernity to represent groups that are politically incorrect. And of course, what they think of as a hate group might not necessarily be actually hateful. It's very funny that, you know, at least in the case of the soldiers of Odin, ostensibly, the reason why they had a surge in membership, the reason why they began growing, was sort of as a community watch style movement. Now, this is common in the US. The only difference is, of course, this was comprised of people that specifically were ethno-nationalists. I'm not sure that insofar as the physical function of it was fundamentally the same as neighborhood watch escorting little old ladies home in a bad neighborhood or something. I'm not so sure that I consider that to be hateful just because the people joining it happen to be of a certain ethnic ideology. I really don't care. I don't feel threatened by such groups. I don't think you've got to understand social pressure is what causes those things to grow. When you try to censor people, they break free of that censorship. When you try to suppress movements or whatever, they proliferate. In a way, this would be a godsend to the pagan community because by being specifically oppressed and suppressed, it becomes cool. It becomes cool. You know, you're not suppressing Nazis, you're suppressing part of an ancient pagan alphabet. That's not going to look very good. So yeah, go ahead and fucking ban the Viking alphabet or whatever crazy shit Sweden wants to do. You'll make more pagans in the world. And they're going to use those runes as much as they want. And there's not a whole lot that Sweden can do about it. What are you going to do? So let's say I'm in Sweden. I'm practicing. I'm part of the Asatru folk assembly or something. And I've got my little, you know, runes, my little cedar chip runes that you can get online all over the place. And is the Gestapo going to break down my door because they think I'm a Nazi for having runestones or something? That's fucking crazy talk. This is some crazy dystopian shit. It doesn't make any sense. It's like if you have a problem with the group, why don't you just like ban the group or something? I know over in Europe they do that to political movements all the time. They shouldn't. I think it's dystopian and terrible and horribly wrong. I think it flies in the face of Western civilization and is evidence of the slow decadence and cultural decay of Northern Europe especially. But it's at least there's a precedent for it. I don't know of any similar precedent. You're banning religious iconography after a fashion. And so all the pagans are up in arms that, yeah, they should be. They should be pissed off. I can think of some other religious symbols. I'm just putting this out there. I can think of some other religious symbols and religious movements, let's face it, that are perfectly tolerated in Sweden and cause a lot more violence than the soldiers of Odin. Just putting that out there. I don't see anyone rushing to ban the symbols of those religions, but, you know, I guess that makes me a hateful individual for noticing that discrepancy. No, instead, your biggest worry is about a few thousand, like, Viking dudes who happen to glom onto a Norse symbol to represent their movement. Well, they're a particularly Scandinavian group within a Scandinavian country. They're, like, traditionalistic. No fucking shit they're gonna use Viking imagery. No, I'm so surprised. This is crazy talk. You see weird shit like this happen all the time. This looks no different to me than like when people here were trying to ban like Harry Potter, or they had a thing about Eminem or heavy metal or something like that, except that this is going after something that's far more noble and traditional and comes from far, far in the past, the ancestry of the people of Sweden. You're trying to erase history, ban part of the past. Why don't you just ban everything over in Sweden and get it done with already? It's going to become a dying nation because what's happened, there will be nothing exciting left. There will be no history, no past. There will be no future, economically speaking, sadly, the plight of Europe, due to population density and resource overstretching, fundamentally. So no past, no future, no fun allowed, basically. Why I don't understand why people would tolerate that. It's like, you know, drinking levels will definitely start rising at some point. Not that that's like the most horrible thing in the world, but I mean, you know, you're going to be a nation of bored alcoholics at some point. Can't even light a bonfire. No, the Nazis. So basically, and here's the other thing. Let's say that I'm a leftist in Sweden now. And this sort of strategy has actually been openly spoken of, like on 4chan. It can be funny. It can be very tongue-in-cheek and satirical, but it does happen. So if I'm a leftist there, let's say that I just get together with a bunch of other leftists, pretend to be a Nazi, and then I say, well, We're gonna use the letter A as our symbol. Are you gonna ban that from the Swedish language? You're not allowed to utter that sound anymore because it stands for wrongthink. It stands for the wrong ideology or whatever. And again, I don't see them rushing to ban other religious materials that are actually causing violence. Norse runes do not cause people to become violent. Yes, I know the Vikings did some depraved shit. Ever hear of the Blood Eagle? Go Google that and see what you find. I think there was a movie where they did that. There was a famous, I can't remember the name of it. Somebody tell me this. Back in the 60s or 70s or something, back at the golden age of cinema as far as adventure fucking movies, pirates and Vikings and shit, back when they had the real good shit, and Charlton Heston and these people were making stuff. There was a movie that was about Vikings. In fact, I think Heston might have been in it, oddly enough. 60s or 70s or something. It was in color. It was a really, really great movie. Really, really violent. They gave, like, some dude a blood eagle towards the end. I can't remember the name of the movie. Should probably look it up. I actually liked that weird artistic Viking film that was over the top gruesome and like kind of psychedelic and weird and had almost no dialogue in it. That was like 10 years ago if I remember correctly. I can't remember the name of that either. It was really well known at the time. I think it got panned by a lot of critics, but I thought it was enjoyable. Should probably brush up on my Viking movies. It helps having an audience of so many people because then you can be confused and you can put it out there and people will repeatedly remind you of the name of a movie or a song, sometimes within several minutes. Very interesting. So Sweden wants to, you want to ban pagan runes because of some Nazis. And most of these people are not violent individuals, they're scared individuals. The nation of Sweden has made them scared by seeming to not give a fuck about their communities. I'm not sure that I 100% blame them when I look at the nation of Sweden. I see they're doing stuff like this. If this is your answer to the problem of militants or neighborhood watch or ethno-nationalism or something like, if your answer is really so dumb that you think banning some pagan runes is going to solve the so-called problem, there is no Sweden anymore at that point. That's about all. Peace out.